Hey squad friends, this is Mr. Peter, and in this video we're going to learn about watersheds, storm drains, and we're going to explore how they connect to our local waterways. So first let's talk about watersheds. What is a watershed? We've done activities in the past with students where we created our own mini watershed kind of simulation. I'm going to do that now. What we did is we take paper, we crumple up that paper into a little ball, and then we uncrumple the paper. And once we uncrumple it, we kind of get a little landscape that looks a little bit like mountains, and maybe it has rivers in it. So then we take a marker and we trace the little creases and lines in our crumpled paper, and these lines represent rivers and streams on a big map. So as you can see in this beautiful simulation watershed right here, I've crumpled paper up, I've uncrumpled it, and then I've drawn lines in purple that represent rivers, creeks, and streams in our watershed. I'm going to take my watershed, and these green sprinkles are going to represent different things that can get swept up by water, and they're going to help us track the progress of water on a rainy day when water moves around. I'm going to simulate rain by spraying some water onto our watershed. And so with each spray, we can view that as like a rainstorm or a bit of a shower. So I want you to think about the green sprinkles as possible pollution or trash, and let's see what happens when water touches our watershed. You can see that the green glitter has mixed with the water and created these blue streams that run down oftentimes along the purple lines. So this is kind of simulating what happens in a watershed when it rains. It gives us an idea of what a watershed looks like. The official definition of a watershed is an area of land where all of the water that comes down, whether from humans or from rain, drains into the same place, like a lake or a bay. Next, can you name the three main bodies of water in DC? If you can, you'll know the three main watersheds in DC are the Anacostia River watershed, the Potomac River watershed, and the Rock Creek watershed. So now that we've talked about what a watershed is, we're going to talk about storm drains, which are sometimes called sewers. I want you to think of a super rainy day when you see water running down the side of the street, right between the street and the sidewalk. Where does that rainwater go after it hits the ground? It has to go somewhere, otherwise the water would just slowly rise, and then eventually we would all be underwater, which doesn't happen. So some water directly absorbs into the ground if it's a permeable surface. And that means that it's a surface of material that can absorb water, so the water goes inside of it. An example of that would be like a lawn or a patch of grass. Water will absorb into those surfaces. The opposite of that is an impervious surface, which is where water hits a surface and does not absorb, and so therefore it runs off in one direction or the other. An example of an impervious surface would be a city sidewalk, the middle of a city street, or anything that has concrete or solid brick. Water that doesn't absorb into our lawns and parks flows down the street and goes into a storm drain. They're often marked with yellow lines on the side of our streets near sidewalks. There's a grate, which is a round circular thing, often black or a dark brown color, and you might see the words sewer or storm drain on them. Take a moment and ask yourself, where do you think these storm drains lead to? So they lead into sewer systems. Sewer systems transport waste and stormwater. Waste is what happens when we use the sink or flush the toilet or use water for our own human purposes. Stormwater comes from rainfall that just comes down naturally. These two different types of water lead into the sewer systems, and in DC there are two different types of sewer systems. Stormwater behaves differently in a rainfall based on what type of sewer system you have, and that depends on what neighborhood you live in. So the older type of sewer system in the city, it's located near the center of DC, is called the CSS, or the Combined Sewer System. And right here, I have an image of what that looks like. In a combined sewer system, sewage from our toilets and normal human wastewater is combined with stormwater runoff from rain, and they travel together through pipes to the water treatment plant in DC, where water is cleaned before it enters the Anacostia River. That way, polluted water is not entering the Anacostia River as often. The other type of sewer system is called the MS4, or the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. In the MS4 system, there are separate pipes for sewage and separate pipes for stormwater. So one level carries sewage away, one level carries stormwater away, and the pipes drain directly into the Anacostia River. If we have extra rainfall, so a really heavy rainstorm, things on the sidewalk and the street can get swept up and then carried through the sewers and into the Anacostia River. Like in the Watershed simulation that we showed, the green glitter got swept up and kind of created these blue lines as it rolled down to the bottom of the hills. What types of things do you think might get carried into the Anacostia River? Yeah, you guessed it, pollution. Pollution comes in all different types of forms, like food wrappers, chemicals on our lawns, empty cans, empty bags of chips, and these things can get swept up in a rainstorm and carried into the Anacostia River. So this really hurts the water quality in the Anacostia River, which is why you may know that we can't swim in the Anacostia River, we can't go fishing from it, and there's a lot of restrictions as to what we can do because the water has become so polluted. But you and I are community members, and we are watershed stewards. When you're part of a community, you help out the people and places in your community. So what steps can we take to help our waterways around us? What do you think we can do to help? So the first most important thing is telling people where their storm drains lead. Not everyone knows that a storm drain leads into the Anacostia River. We can teach people where their storm drains lead by using storm drain markers and murals. These are pieces of art that get put on top of storm drains to tell us where our stormwater goes and to remind us not to pollute or let pollution into our waterways. I'm going to show you some examples of what a storm drain marker or a storm drain mural might look like. Right here, we have a storm drain mural. This is painted along the sidewalk to where the drain is, which I'm pointing at right now with my finger. And it's very colorful, it's very decorative, it catches your eye, it lets people know where their stuff is going. This is more of a marker, and you might see this placed directly on top of a storm drain. It's just, again, a colorful thing that tells people what happens to their water when it goes and what types of things can get carried up in it. We've got one other example here. Again, bright colors, drawing a fish, so keeping that theme of you're affecting your waterways when you let trash go into the sewers. So for the last part of the video, if we were in person, we'd make storm drain markers together. But we can still make these markers at home. All we need are crayons, markers, something to draw on, and we can maybe hold on to these until we can go out into the community together and place them on different storm drains and sewers. Before you start drawing, think of 3 main things for your storm drain marker. Number 1, what message is going to be on your marker? You want to make sure this is short and doesn't get too confusing. Number 2, where is this water heading to? Are you in the Anacostia watershed? Are you in the Rock Creek watershed? Are you in the Potomac watershed? And number 3, what do you want it to look like? Is it going to have a theme? Will it have mermaids on it? Will it have an octopus on it? Think about what you want the storm drain marker to look like in your head, and then you can start drawing. We want to make sure these markers catch people's attention. So they're big and they're colorful and they're eye-catching. If you don't want to draw a marker, you could design a mural that maybe if the squad got together one day and we all had a bunch of paint, we could paint a mural on a side of a building near a sewer or right on top of a sewer, like in the example that we showed you earlier. So take some time to design your storm drain marker or plan for your storm drain mural. Hopefully in the future we'll get to put these together and actually let them out into our community. And thank you for taking up your role as a watershed steward. That's going to be it for this video. Have fun, everyone, and this is Urban Adventure Squad signing off.